Hey now, Deadheads, we are back again. A lot of great releases lately, but this one is particularly exciting to me, and it is, of course, Dick's Picks Volume 2, the new Real Gone release of this, a show from October 1971. Funny timing on this. Got it right around the same time as the latest Dave's Picks release, which is a show from LA from November 1971, and so good chunk of fall 1971 lately. Nice to kind of compare these two, but this release, like I said, is particularly interesting to me. Interesting for sound quality reasons, interesting for why it's getting released reasons. This is not the first time that they have released Dick's Picks Volume 2 on vinyl. As many of you know, when you get in our little time machines, look all the way back in the mid-90s when old Richard Latvala conceived of this series. He's the person Dick's Picks is named after. A lot of these releases they were unsure about because the sound quality wasn't as good as something like Europe 72, Skull and Roses, even in later years, Without a Net. They had all of these wonderful 16-track recordings, these very clean recordings, meticulously put together, meticulously recorded by some of the finest recording engineers, the finest recordists of Grateful Dead music. And then they had this huge archive of tapes. Dick Latvala was a huge tape collector, had all of his favorites. He started off collecting in Hawaii, moved his operations over to the West Coast eventually, and got involved as the archivist for the Grateful Dead. But when these were originally released, you had the caveat emptor right on the back of the CD case. I'll show you, what the original CD case one looks like, and they warn you that this is a digital transfer of the original analog tape, 7.5 inch per second, that has seen the test of time. When they finally got around to releasing Dick's Picks Volume 2, I think that was back in 2012, the Brookvale release. Those initial releases were sourced from the same digital transfer that they created the CDs with. And so someone referred to it once, I think it was the 32 from the Vault guys, referred to it once as an aesthetic choice to listen to Dick's Picks on vinyl as opposed to CDs, because it's the same stuff, the same source that went into the CDs. They're selling it for a lot more money on vinyl. It's an aesthetic choice. But now Real Gone is finally going back, and they're doing justice for a lot of these releases. Doing justice in the way that they did for Dick's Picks Volume 1, Dick's Picks Volume 2, those Brookvale releases, originally released by Brookvale Records, and now re-releasing them on vinyl, but they're sourcing it from the original analog tapes. They're not just taking those CD masters and pressing it to vinyl, and so it's no longer just an aesthetic choice. This release in particular, it sounds fantastic. You think about the Dick's Picks series, and it's the rough around the edges. They called it the warts and all releases. But this release really, stands up as, I would say, audiophile grade release. It's clean, it's pressed really nicely, it's not noisy at all. It's a really beautiful recording of something that, when you think of the Dick's Picks releases, you don't think of beautiful audiophile recordings. It's a really wonderful recording. And so I'm hoping that we see a lot more of this. Now, a lot of my favorite Dick's Picks releases, 4 and 8, just like any other Deadhead, I'm really hoping that we'll see similar treatment with a Real Gone release in the future, especially Dick's Picks Volume 4. Those go for crazy amounts of money when you look at eBay, Discogs, wherever. And so I'm really hoping that Real Gone keeps up this trend of re-releasing a lot of those long out of print, not necessarily the best quality, hard to get, hard to find, old Dick's Picks releases, and we get these beautiful editions. And let me show you just how beautiful this version is. Taking a look at the cover, you have that faithful reproduction of the original. It's really funny when you look at Discogs listings for a lot of those original Brookvale releases. They need to warn people that that's just how the cover looks. That's the coverware on the reproduction of the Ampex box is an aesthetic choice. When we take a look at the hype sticker, I always like to save these hype stickers. They do call out that it is remastered for vinyl for the very first time by Jeffrey Norman. And of course, this is limited edition to 3,500 copies. When we open things up, you get essentially, I believe the original liner notes of the CD were fairly minimal. So you get a reproduction of that very minimal liner notes. So you've got the band listed out here, the track listing. It's a very short track listing. This is only 3 sides of music, only a few songs. I think this is one of the shortest, if not the shortest, Dick's Picks release. And when we look at the inner sleeves, you can see these beautiful Gotta Groove Records inner sleeves holding the vinyl. And that's why I think it sounds so good, or it wasn't damaged in shipment at all, like some of the other releases that we've seen from the Grateful Dead licensed releases over the past year or so. The Real Gone releases really are some of the highest quality releases of Grateful Dead music on vinyl. And then, of course, when we look at the back, you can see the track listing again, more reproduction of the Ampex box, the hand numbering out of the edition of 3,500, and a slightly different caveat emptor here. This album has been mastered from the original quarter track 7.5-inch tapes. There's no call out for this being a digital intermediary and then pressed onto an analog format. They know that Deadheads and audiophiles really appreciate that all analog sourcing that went into this. And so overall, I'd say this is a really good release. Probably one of my favorites from this year, maybe tied with that Dick's Picks 1 release that Real Gone did earlier this year. And like I said, I really want to see this momentum continue. I really appreciate that in the past years, Real Gone has done some of those Dick's Picks releases released on vinyl for the very first time, but going back to these impossibly hard to get records, impossibly expensive records, and making them sound even better, I think that's a winning formula, and I really appreciate that they're doing that. All the care, all the love that they're putting into this, instead of just saying, yeah, grab the old stampers, let's make some more, and we'll put it in some new packaging and make another couple bucks. So I really appreciate that they're doing this. In terms of Dead releases that are still on the radar for this year, of course, we've got the recently released new Jerry Garcia record, Heads and Tails, Volume 1, which is a really interesting new series from Jerry Garcia. And then we've got the Record Store Day releases. We've got the new Without a Net, Truckin' Up to Buffalo came out a couple weeks ago. A lot of really good, really interesting stuff coming out soon. And we can't, of course, forget Oteil's solo record of Jerry Garcia ballads coming out soon. Really excited about that one. That's going to be an interesting one. I really want to see what the audio quality sounds like on that, because it sounds like he put a lot of care into recording that album. So did they put the same amount of care into pressing that album? But that's it for today. I'm really curious what you guys think about these new repressings of some of these old Dick's Picks releases. Are you an owner of the original Brookvale releases and you're saying, I don't know if I want to pick these up? Did you miss out on those Brookvale releases and you're finally saying, now's my chance? Or are you just a CD purist and you're sticking to your old stash of those 36 editions of Dick's Picks? Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm really curious what everyone else thinks about these Grateful Dead releases, especially these Dick's Picks releases. If you're not subscribed, I encourage you to hit that little subscribe button down below. That way you won't miss any of my upcoming videos. And thank you very much for joining me today. Peace.